And I find it interesting that time when you started Poco, that LA scene, and I'm curious why and how did it evolve into like a country rock scene? Because it wasn't just you guys. Gram Parsons was there doing
Mhm.
stuff with the Birds. Gene Clark was doing stuff with Dillard and Clark. Michael Nesmith was doing his stuff.
Yeah.
Why was this country scene? How did it evolve in Los Angeles? And it doesn't seem natural, but
I
it
have
is.
no idea. Other than, I guess everybody like myself, there was, well, Graham and I had talked about putting a band together
Yeah,
when
tell me about that.
he came out to LA. He was working with the Birds, and he was thinking about putting a band together, and we talked about it, and we just couldn't sort out, how we're going to split the people up. I was very satisfied with who I had in the band and for the band that I had, and he was too. But how are you going to change it around? So it never did happen. But if you talk to like Chris, he'll even tell you, man, we were a country band. We
Hmm.
weren't a country rock band. We played every country dive, out there in the Los Angeles area. But yeah, the Birds was Sweetheart of the Rodeo, and Michael Nesmith, he was it was just something that was just germinating at the time in LA. Now, I had written Child's Claim to Fame, which obviously was
Right.
country, and Kind Woman, which had a country feel to it. So it was something that was in my heart, that kind of style of music anyway. And so it was just evolving at the time. It's interesting that Poco had, they're picking up the pieces, record we were working on it before the Birds' Sweetheart of the Rodeo actually came out. And so, but hey, man, you got to give them credit for what they did. I mean, Chris had a lot of bluegrass stuff going on with him, and also it was just, there was just a scene that was happening, and it was filling a gap that was just supposed to happen at the time, like doo-wop happened back in New York one time, and here we got some country stuff going now.
Love it. And I have a couple questions. One, Brass Buttons, which you cover on, which was released, I think, right before Graham passed away and before
Uh-huh.
Graham even put it on one of his own albums. Did Graham know that you were covering this, or do you have any idea if he ever heard your Poco version?
I don't know, because he taught it to me when we were friends back in New York, when we were both, living that's where I learned the song back then. I thought, good golly, man, this is really a pretty interesting song, for a young guy like him to be writing. And for years, I mean, I really didn't even know that it was about his mom, you know. But I loved the song. I thought the song it just really touched me. It was a really, really sweet song. And I don't know that he knew that I was recording it or not. I don't know.
You do a beautiful job on it. And then Crazy Eyes, which is also when we talk about mythology, the mythologies that's also about Graham Parsons. Is that
Well, some aspects of it, I definitely stole. I mean, if you look ever, in speaking to Graham, you could look in his eyes, and they were kind of bushy, and you looked into him, and you could see there was something weird in there, because Graham was an interesting kind of guy. I mean, and so like Crazy Eyes, and then I talked about, growing South Carolina pines where he grew up, and this and that and the other. So I guess you got to put some kind of connotation to the song. Had something about a Graham, but it was a song that I had written years ago. I mean, before it was ever recorded. As just a simple little folk song, and that's how we recorded it. And Jack Richardson, who was the producer at the time, was working with Bob Ezrin, and he said, "Let me send this to Bob and let him orchestrate this." And I said, "Hey, have at it. Let's see what happens." And man, it came back, and it was like, "Wow,
oh yeah, it's
this
an
is an epic.
opus.
This
Oh
is an
yeah.
epic."
Oh yeah, it's so amazing. And Rusty Steel inside of it, just
Yeah,
all just so beautiful. And
it
then
it
I
it
find
was.
that second side of Crazy Eyes to be just perfect with Magnolia, then the song that closes that you do. I think it's tremendous. Tremendous
Thank you.
album. A great coda to your time with Poco as well, I feel.
Yeah. And Jack was a great guy to work with at the same time. We were looking for that. We kept looking for that producer that was going to produce that hit record for us, because he was, involved with the Guess Who back up in Canada, And I wanted Richie Podler to actually be the producer. We finally got him for the first Souther Hillman Furay record. But yeah, Crazy Eyes, turned out to be quite a classic, and I think Jack had a lot to do with just the idea. Let me send this off to Bob Ezrin, because Bob will he'll give a little twist to it, which would be cool. And it was, man. When we heard it, it was like, oh yeah.
Really